My ex-boyfriend crashed my engagement dinner and announced he still loved me in front of my fiance's family. His face went white when I pulled out my phone. I'm Natalie Harper, and I'm about to tell you how my toxic ex-boyfriend tried to ruin my engagement party, but ended up destroying himself instead. Picture this. Romano's Italian restaurant, the private dining room I'd reserved for our intimate engagement celebration. Ethan's parents had flown in from Seattle, his sister brought her new boyfriend, and my parents were beaming with pride. The table was set with white roses and flickering candles, champagne glasses raised for toasts, and everyone was celebrating our upcoming wedding in 6 months. I was wearing the emerald green dress Ethan loved, the one he'd bought me for my birthday last year. My engagement ring, a vintage Art Deco piece that had belonged to his grandmother, caught the soft candlelight every time I moved my hand. We had been together for 2 wonderful years, and this dinner was supposed to be our moment to share our happiness with our families before sending out the wedding invitations. But deep down, I had a sinking feeling that Blake Wilson, my manipulative ex from 3 years ago, wasn't going to let this night go smoothly. You see, Blake and I had dated for 3 tumultuous years during my early 20s. What started as a passionate romance had slowly morphed into an emotional prison. Blake was charming, successful in real estate, and knew exactly how to make me feel like I was the center of his universe, when it suited him. But he was also controlling, jealous, and had a way of making me question my own reality. He didn't like my friends, claiming they were jealous of our relationship. He'd show up unexpectedly at my workplace, saying he was surprising me, but really checking up on who I was talking to. He had opinions about my clothes, my career choices, even my family relationships. Slowly but surely, he isolated me from everyone who mattered. The breaking point came 3 years ago when I caught him going through my phone while I was in the shower. When I confronted him, he turned it around on me, claiming I was being secretive and suspicious. That night, I realized I'd lost myself completely. The confident, independent woman I'd once been had disappeared under the weight of his constant manipulation and control. Breaking up with Blake was one of the hardest things I'd ever done, not because I loved him, but because he'd made me believe I couldn't survive without him. He spent weeks trying to win me back with grand gestures, showing up at my apartment with elaborate flower arrangements, writing long letters about how he'd change, even calling my mother to convince her to talk to me. When the romantic approach failed, he turned nasty. He spread rumors about me to mutual friends, claiming I'd cheated on him. He left voicemails calling me ungrateful and telling me I'd never find anyone who loved me as much as he did. Eventually, I had to block his number and all his social media accounts just to get some peace. For a year after our breakup, I threw myself into therapy and rebuilding my life. I reconnected with old friends, pursued a promotion at work, and slowly learned to trust my own instincts again. I was finally starting to feel like myself when I met Ethan at a charity fundraiser 18 months later. Ethan was everything Blake wasn't. Where Blake was possessive, Ethan was supportive. Where Blake was controlling, Ethan respected my independence. Where Blake made me feel small, Ethan made me feel powerful. Most importantly, Ethan never tried to change me. He loved me exactly as I was. Our relationship progressed naturally and healthily. We took our time getting to know each other, building trust and genuine partnership. When Ethan proposed 6 months ago during a weekend trip to Napa Valley, I didn't hesitate for a second. This was the man I wanted to spend my life with. But apparently, Blake had been watching from the sidelines. It started innocently enough about a month ago. A congratulations text when he saw our engagement announcement on social media. I should have ignored it, but after 3 years of silence, I thought maybe he'd finally moved on and was genuinely wishing me well. I sent back a polite thank you and thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The next day,
Another text. You look really happy in those photos. I'm glad you found someone who makes you smile like that. Then, I've been thinking about us lately, about how things ended. I owe you an apology. Then, I know this might be crazy, but I keep wondering if we gave up too easily. We had something special, Nat. Each message became progressively more intrusive, more presumptuous. He started using my old nickname that only he had called me. He referenced inside jokes from our relationship. He began suggesting we meet for coffee to clear the air before my wedding. When I didn't respond to his texts, he started calling. When I didn't answer his calls, he began calling from different numbers, his office line, his friends' phones, even numbers I didn't recognize. The voicemails became increasingly desperate and manipulative. Natalie, I know you're getting these messages. This silent treatment isn't like you. The Natalie I knew would at least hear me out. I heard through a mutual friend that your engagement party is coming up. I just want you to know that I'm happy for you, but I can't help feeling like we have unfinished business. I've changed, Nat. I've been in therapy. I understand now what I did wrong. Don't you think I deserve a chance to show you who I've become? But the message that really alarmed me came 2 weeks ago. I saw you at Whole Foods yesterday. You were buying ingredients for what looked like a dinner party. You still get that little wrinkle between your eyebrows when you're concentrating. Some things never change. He'd been watching me, following me, and he was letting me know it. That's when I made the decision to start documenting everything. My best friend Olivia, who happens to be a family law attorney, had been urging me to take his contact more seriously. Natalie, she'd said during one of our weekly coffee dates, this isn't just an ex trying to reconnect. This is stalking behavior. You need to protect yourself. So I started screenshotting every message. I saved every voicemail. I began noting the dates and times when I spotted him in places where our paths shouldn't naturally cross. The parking garage at my office building, the grocery store near my apartment, the gym I joined specifically because it was across town from where he lived. Olivia helped me organize everything into a timeline. What we discovered was chilling. Blake had been escalating his contacts steadily over the past month, and his behavior was following a classic pattern of stalking and harassment. The engagement party announcement probably triggered this, Olivia explained as we reviewed the evidence. In his mind, you're slipping away permanently. He's going to make one last desperate play to get you back. What kind of play? I'd asked, though part of me already knew. He's going to disrupt your engagement party or your wedding. He's going to make some grand romantic gesture that he thinks will win you back, probably in front of your friends and family, to maximize the pressure on you to respond. Olivia was right, of course. 2 days before our engagement dinner, Blake's messages took on a new urgency. Natalie, I know you're having your engagement party this weekend. Please, just give me 5 minutes before you make the biggest mistake of your life. I'm not going to let you marry someone else without fighting for us. You owe me that much. If you won't meet me privately, I'll have to find another way to talk to you. The threat was implicit, but clear. Olivia immediately began preparing a restraining order application, but we needed one more piece of evidence, actual criminal behavior like trespassing or public harassment. He's going to crash your party, Olivia warned me the morning of our dinner. Are you prepared for that? I thought I was. I'd briefed Ethan on the situation, shown him some of the messages, and explained that Blake might try to disrupt our evening. He'd been supportive, but also protective, suggesting we hire security for the event. I'd declined, thinking that might escalate things unnecessarily.
The evening started perfectly. Romano's had prepared our favorite dishes, the seafood risotto that Ethan and I had shared on our first official date, and the tiramisu his mother had specifically requested. Ethan's father, a retired police detective, was telling stories about his early days on the force. His mother was showing my parents photos of the venue where we planned to hold our wedding reception. I was laughing at something Ethan's sister had said about her own engagement disaster when I felt my phone buzz in my purse. Without thinking, I glanced at it under the table. A text from Blake. I'm outside. This is your last chance to do this the easy way. My blood ran cold. I excused myself to the restroom and immediately called Olivia. "He's here," I whispered into the phone. "He's outside the restaurant." "Called 911, she said immediately. "I can't. Not yet. He hasn't actually done anything illegal. He's not technically trespassing if he's on a public sidewalk." The hostess of the restaurants appeared in the hallway leading to the restrooms. "Excuse me, are you Natalie Harper?" My heart sank. "Yes." "There's a gentleman at the front asking to speak with you. He says it's important and that you're expecting him." I looked at my phone. Another text from Blake. "I'm outside. I told them I'm your cousin and there's a family emergency. Come outside or I'm coming in." This was it. This was the moment Olivia had predicted. Blake was forcing a confrontation in the most manipulative way possible, threatening to disrupt my family's celebration unless I gave him what he wanted. For a split second, I considered just going outside to talk to him. Maybe I could convince him to leave without causing a scene. Maybe I could avoid ruining everyone's evening. Then I remembered what my therapist had told me years ago. "Natalie, you can't negotiate with someone who doesn't respect your boundaries. Every time you give in to avoid conflict, you're teaching them that their manipulation works." I wasn't that scared, uncertain woman anymore. I was stronger now. I had people who loved and supported me. And I had evidence. "Tell the gentleman that I'm not available," I told the hostess. "If he continues to bother the staff or other customers, please call the police." I returned to our table, where Ethan immediately noticed my expression. "Everything okay?" he asked quietly. "Blake's here," I whispered.
His jaw tightened, but before he could respond, the private dining room door burst open. And there he was, Blake Wilson, in an expensive charcoal suit I recognized from our relationship, holding a bouquet of red roses, the same flowers he used to buy me when he was apologizing for his latest emotional manipulation. His hair was perfectly styled, his smile confident, and he moved with the same charismatic energy that had drawn me to him years ago. The entire table fell silent. Ethan's champagne glass froze halfway to his lips. His mother's eyes went wide with confusion. My father half stood from his chair, his protective instincts kicking in. Blake surveyed the room with satisfaction, clearly pleased with the dramatic effect of his entrance. This was exactly the kind of grand gesture he'd always favored. Public, theatrical, designed to put maximum pressure on me to respond the way he wanted. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he announced, his voice carrying the smooth confidence I remembered so well. "But I couldn't let this evening continue without saying something important." The restaurant manager appeared behind him, looking flustered. "Sir, this is a private event. You can't just—" Blake held up a hand dismissively. "It's fine. Natalie knows me. Don't you, Nat?" The use of my old nickname in front of Ethan's family felt like a slap. It was deliberate, calculated to suggest an intimacy that no longer existed. I felt all eyes turn to me, waiting for my response. This was the moment Blake had engineered. Maximum pressure, maximum audience, maximum potential for me to cave to his demands just to avoid embarrassing myself and my family. "Blake," I said evenly, my voice steadier than I felt, "what are you doing here?" "I'm here to tell you the truth," he declared, now addressing not just me, but the entire table. "Natalie, you're making a mistake. A huge mistake." He stepped closer to our table, and I could see Ethan's muscles tense. My fiancé's protective instincts were clearly warring with his desire not to make the situation worse. "We," he continued, gesturing between us with the roses,
had something real, something passionate, something that doesn't just disappear because time passes or because you're scared of commitment. The condescension in his voice was unmistakable. He was positioning himself as the one who truly understood me, while implying that Ethan and my choice to be with him was based on fear rather than love. We had 3 incredible years together. 3 years of the kind of love that most people only dream about. And you threw it away because of what? A few arguments? Some growing pains? Every relationship has challenges, Nat. I felt sick. This was exactly what he'd done during our relationship. Rewrite history to minimize his controlling behavior and reframe our problems as normal couple conflicts. To anyone listening who didn't know our history, he might actually sound reasonable. Blake turned to address Ethan directly. He said, "I'm sure you're a nice guy, but you have to understand, you're getting Natalie's rebound relationship. You're the safe choice she made when she was too hurt and scared to take a real chance on love again." The insult was clear, and I saw Ethan's face harden. But before my fiancé could respond, Blake continued his manipulation masterclass. "Natalie," he said, turning back to me with the intense eye contact I remembered so well, "I know you feel it too. The connection we had doesn't just disappear. You can't marry someone else when your heart belongs to me." This was the moment. This was Blake's grand gesture. A public declaration of love designed to force me into an impossible situation. If I rejected him publicly and harshly, I'd look cold in front of both families. If I was kind or diplomatic, he'd interpret it as encouragement. If I left him for talk privately, he'd see it as validation that his strategy worked. But Blake had made one crucial miscalculation. He assumed I was still the same woman he manipulated 3 years ago. He had no idea how much I'd grown, how much I'd healed, or how thoroughly I'd prepared for exactly this moment. I reached into my purse with deliberate calm and pulled out my phone. "You want to talk about truth, Blake?" I asked, my voice growing stronger with each word. Blake's confident expression faltered slightly. This clearly wasn't the response he'd expected. "The truth is," I continued, opening my phone's photo gallery, "you've been stalking and harassing me for the past month." I began reading from his messages, my voice clear enough for everyone at the table to hear. "Natalie, I know you're getting these messages. This silent treatment isn't like you. I saw you at Whole Foods yesterday. You were buying ingredients for what looked like a dinner party. I'm not going to let you marry someone else without fighting for us. You owe me that much." With each message I read, Blake's face grew paler. The romantic narrative he'd been trying to construct was crumbling in real time. "But wait," I said, scrolling to my voicemail recordings. "There's more." I played one of his more recent voicemails on speaker. Blake's voice filled the room, desperate and slightly slurred. "Natalie, you think you can just ignore me. You think your little boyfriend can protect you? I know where you live, where you work, where you get your coffee every morning. You can't hide from what we had forever." The threat in his voice was unmistakable. Ethan's mother actually gasped. His father, the retired detective, was already reaching for his own phone, his law enforcement instincts taking over. Blake was now backing toward the door, his romantic gesture having transformed into a criminal confession in front of multiple witnesses. "Dad, that's not— you're taking it out of context," he stammered. His smooth confidence completely evaporated. "Context?" I stood up, feeling more powerful than I had in years. "The context is that you've been stalking me for a month, threatening me, following me to public places, and now you've trespassed into my private engagement dinner to try and manipulate me in front of my family." I looked around the table at the shocked but supportive faces of our loved ones, then back at Blake. "But here's what you don't know, Blake. I've been documenting everything. Every message, every call, every time you followed me. And my friend Olivia, who's a lawyer, has already prepared a restraining order. Right on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. On my way, keep him talking. I'd texted her the moment Blake walked into the room, and she'd immediately left her own dinner to come support me. You're insane, Blake said, his mask finally slipping completely. I was trying to save you from making the biggest mistake of your life, and you're treating me like some kind of criminal. You are a criminal, Ethan finally spoke, his voice dangerously calm as he stood up. You've been stalking my fiancé for weeks. You've made threats against her. You followed her without her consent. And now you've committed trespassing and harassment in front of a room full of witnesses. Blake turned on Ethan with the kind of venom I remembered from our worst fights. You have no idea what you're talking about. You don't know Natalie like I do. You don't know what she needs, what makes her happy. I know she needs to feel safe. I know she needs to be respected. I know she needs someone who supports her choices instead of trying to control them. And I know that everything you've done tonight proves exactly why she was right to leave you. Blake's face twisted with rage. You think you've won something? You think you're better than me? She'll get bored with you, just like she got bored with me. You're just too naive to see it yet. Actually, I interjected, my voice steady and strong, I never got bored with you, Blake. I got tired of being controlled, manipulated, and emotionally abused. There's a difference. The word abused hung in the air like a bomb. I'd never said it out loud before, not even to my therapist, but hearing Blake's threats, seeing his manipulation tactics on full display, I finally had the clarity to name what our relationship really was. Blake's eyes widened with shock and fury. Abused? Are you kidding me? I loved you. I gave you everything. I would have done anything for you. Love doesn't involve stalking, I replied calmly. Love does not involve threats. Love does not involve showing up uninvited to someone's private celebration and trying to manipulate them in front of their family. Just then, Olivia appeared in the doorway behind Blake, holding an envelope and flanked by 2 police officers. Blake Wilson, she said professionally, you've been served. The restraining order papers were already prepared. We'd just been waiting for him to cross the line into criminal behavior. Trespassing and making threats in front of witnesses was more than enough. One of the police officers stepped forward. Sir, we're going to need you to come with us. You're under arrest for trespassing, harassment, and stalking. Blake looked around wildly as if just now realizing how completely his plan had backfired. This is insane. I came here to tell the woman I love that she's making a mistake. Since when is that a crime? Since you've been stalking her for a month and trespassing on private property, the officer replied matter-of-factly, taking Blake's arm. As they led him away, Blake turned back one last time, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. Natalie, you'll regret this. You don't know what you're giving up. He'll never love you the way I do. I looked him straight in the eye and said the words I'd been waiting 3 years to say. Blake, you're right about one thing. Ethan will never love me the way you did. He'll love me better. The door closed behind him, and for a moment, our private dining room was completely silent. Then Ethan's mother started to applaud.
Natalie, she said, her voice filled with admiration, that was the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed. The way you handled that situation. Ethan's father put his phone away and nodded approvingly. Smart thinking, documenting everything. Most stalking victims don't think to do that, and it makes prosecution much more difficult. My own parents looked proud but shaken. Honey, my mom asked, has this been going on long? Why didn't you tell us how serious it was? I explained the situation more thoroughly, how Blake's contact had escalated over the past month, how I'd been working with Olivia to build a case, and how we'd anticipated he might try to disrupt our celebration. I didn't want to worry anyone unnecessarily, I admitted, and part of me hoped he'd come to his senses and leave us alone. Never apologize for protecting yourself, Ethan's father said firmly. You handled this exactly right. Olivia pulled up a chair and joined our table as the restaurant staff worked to restore some normalcy to our evening. She explained the legal process moving forward. Blake would likely be held overnight.
arraigned in the morning, and the restraining order would be in effect immediately. "There's something else you should know," Olivia said, looking directly at me. "This isn't Blake's first offense. The officers told me he has a prior restraining order from 2 years ago, another ex-girlfriend who accused him of similar behavior." That information hit me like a punch to the gut. Blake had done this before, to someone else, and he'd probably do it again if he wasn't stopped. "I want to press charges," I said immediately. "Full prosecution. He needs to face consequences." 3 weeks later, I was sitting in a courthouse as Blake pled guilty to stalking, harassment, and trespassing charges. The plea deal included a 2-year restraining order, mandatory anger management and therapy, and 200 hours of community service. More importantly, his conviction became part of a public record that would be available to any future partners who might think to search his name. Olivia, who had represented me throughout the process, told me something that validated every difficult moment of the legal proceedings. "Natalie, after your case made the local news, 3 other women came forward with similar stories about Blake. Your courage to document everything and press charges gave them the strength to speak up about their own experiences." That revelation was both heartbreaking and empowering. Blake had been running the same playbook with multiple women, using the same manipulation tactics, the same threats, the same grand gestures when they tried to move on with their lives. By standing up to him publicly, I'd helped expose a pattern of behavior that might have continued indefinitely. 2 of the other women decided to pursue their own charges against Blake for incidents that had occurred within the statute of limitations. The third woman chose not to press charges, but thanked me for helping her understand that what she'd experienced wasn't normal relationship conflict, it was abuse. Our wedding 4 months later was absolutely perfect. Blake was obviously nowhere to be seen, and for the first time in over a year, I felt completely free. No looking over my shoulder, no anxiety about unexpected phone calls or surprise visits, no fear that my past would somehow poison my future. During our reception, as Ethan and I shared our first dance as husband and wife, I caught sight of Olivia at our friend's table. She raised her champagne glass to me and mouthed, "You did it." And I had. I'd taken back my power from someone who thought he could control my life through fear, manipulation, and intimidation. In his twisted mind, Blake had probably convinced himself that crashing our engagement dinner was a romantic gesture worthy of a movie, the passionate ex-boyfriend fighting for true love, the dramatic declaration that would make me realize my mistake. What he actually did was provide me the perfect opportunity to show him, and everyone who mattered to me, exactly how much I'd grown, how strong I'd become, and how completely I'd moved on from the scared woman he had once controlled. The best revenge against someone who tries to manipulate you through fear isn't anger or retaliation. It's becoming so strong, so supported, and so confident in your own worth that their attempts at control become laughably powerless. Blake had spent weeks planning what he thought would be the perfect moment to win me back. Instead, he gave me the perfect moment to show the world exactly why I'd chosen to leave him behind. A year after our wedding, I received another piece of mail that made me smile. It was a newsletter from the Domestic Violence Prevention Organization where I'd started volunteering, sharing stories from women who'd used my case as inspiration to document their own stalking situations and seek legal protection. "Sometimes," I told Ethan as we read through the success stories together, "the worst thing someone does to you becomes the best thing you do for someone else." Blake had tried to destroy my future. Instead, he'd given me the tools to help build safer futures for other women. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do to someone who won't accept your no is say it louder in front of witnesses with documentation and with the full force of the law behind you.